It's in there. Is there something up here or is it okay? Well, welcome to the Couples Academy show. My name is Hassani.
And I'm Danielle.
And we're here this morning to give you what you need, another dose of information that will give you guidance, direction, insight, and steps to help transform your life and restore your relationship. Listen, before we get started, we want you to share this with the community. So listen.
Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. That way you won't miss a show. Because guess what, y'all? We are spreading this message to the four corners of the earth. What is the message? That marriage matters. And we got to do it God's way, the kingdom way.
There it is.
If we're going to make the impact in the world that we want to make. So
And on that note, doing it God's way, the kingdom way, we've been talking to you about how we're launching a new show we're excited about. You'll be able to see it this Sunday. It's called Kingdom Marriage, where Danielle and I will begin to unpack what the Word of God says about marriage. A lot of you are believers, but your level of knowledge of the Word, it's so interesting. I heard a preacher say that most Christians are biblically illiterate when it comes to marriage. Right. So they understand that marriage was created by God, but understanding the laws, the principles, the culture of marriage as relates to the kingdom, they don't have a knowledge of. And so I'm excited to break this thing down.
Yes, me too. I'm amped about it because, even for us, when you're out here in the world and you're seeing so many things and there's so many opinions and different ways of doing things and everything is acceptable. Now we're in a generation where anything goes. But if you want to live kingdom, then you have to do it the kingdom way. And so if anything goes, then everything goes. And that means the kingdom way is going to go, at least as far as this house is concerned.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to unleash on Sunday. But listen, today we're talking about an important topic, the effect of infidelity on your mental health. Now, This is a critically important topic, particularly for both partners for different reasons. For the betrayed spouse, it will validate how they have felt. It will help articulate feelings that they could not put into words, but it will also give the unfaithful spouse clarity and understanding, because when they hear this and see this from their own spouse, they think he's just overreacting. Right. She's just exaggerating. She's just emotional,
right.
But when you hear from us, it will really bring clarity. And I think a lot of times what happens is when we hear the same message through another messenger, it allows us to accept the message that our spouse is given in the first place.
Yeah. And also, sometimes you're dealing with a spouse that just happens to be theatrical, right? But when you see that this theatrical behavior is something that is consistent in anyone and everyone who has experienced what they've experienced, then some empathy should develop in you, right? Because not everybody manages emotions and stress the same way, but most people will go through the similar phases. And
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about that. Sure.
So let's dive right in. I mean, this is an important conversation. We know for a fact when dealing with infidelity, it leaves a deep pain on you physically, emotionally, and mentally. Like you can feel it in the white meat. You can feel it all the way to the bones.
Past the dark meat,
I'm saying,
or past the white meat into the white meat, because we all got white meat underneath.
What I'm just saying,
right?
You
so
feel
it's deep. It's cutting deep.
Like, for instance, have any of you ever fasted? This is a perfect example. If you've ever fasted and you've been without food for a few days, for those who are doing Daniel fast at their church, you know how you just feel cold, and you can feel cold in your bones?
Yeah.
You can put clothes on, you could put the heat on, you could take a hot shower, but still, like, in your bones, you are cold.
Yeah.
Well, that's a level of pain, if you will, to give you an example of what people feel. It's an internal thing. And this is why we say all the time, a lot of people don't have an appreciation for what their partner goes through, because there's no physical outward evidence of it.
Yes.
It's an internal reality.
Right. And well, let's talk about that a little bit more. I think we could dial a little bit deeper into this, because, we're talking about, what are we talking about when we talk about this deep emotional, physical pain, all these emotions that we're feeling? They're actually very real to the person that's going through them, because your mind and your brain is actually designed to do that for you. And there's something in your mind, your brain, called the amygdala, and its job is to keep you safe. And so when you've experienced any form of trauma, usually the amygdala's job is to remind you of any sense or anything that is comparable to that trauma to warn you to stay away. So that might be real things or things that seem real. For example, most of us are afraid of spiders or definitely afraid of snakes, right? And so you could be walking down the street and there could be maybe a frog and you might not notice the frog, and there could be a grasshopper and you don't notice the grasshopper, but let a snake slither on the side. Your brain is going to see, and you didn't even look at it. Your brain will use peripheral vision to identify the snake or identify the spider because you're terrified of the spider. And so that's exactly what happens when we're talking about triggers, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens, is that we are actually triggered and we feel these emotions physically, mentally, emotional, and they're very real for us.
Now, think about these triggers you just talked about. The fear that we have. Oftentimes there's a fear that our spouse will do it again. But when you're consumed with all of these feelings and these emotions and these thoughts that are just running through your head, it's hard for you to show up in life. Like the way you do life is it's impacted. You show up for your children differently. You show up on your job differently. You show up for your spouse differently. You show up to family and friends differently. And they could sense something's different about you. And you're struggling on the inside because you still have to handle responsibilities. There's duties and obligations that you have in this life, but everything, it's almost like you don't want to do nothing.
You're showing up different because you are different.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like every time we have an experience, we become different. You know, every time we grow through some pains, those growing pains, right, we become different. And so when you experience trauma, you become different. You're not the same. Any child that experiences trauma, whether they were abused, whether they were starved, whether they were left alone in a house all day long, trust and believe they are different.
Without a doubt.
And so, you know, it's what happens is that we tend to penalize our partners for being different when we cause the trauma that made the shift happen. Yeah. And, you know, we're talking about showing up different, but sometimes we just stop showing up when we're experiencing trauma. We stop showing up,
and
you know?
That's the point.
And that's the point. Like we stop showing up in every way because we're so wounded and we're so comfortable with what pain we have experienced that we build these walls around ourselves to protect us. So we don't even go to the extent of the barrier that we created for ourselves based on the trauma. We're terrified to extend past that barrier of safety for fear of more hurt, more pain.
Right. And I think one of the biggest fears when you really allow people to unpack the fears, it's funny because when we do, not funny in a humorous way, but funny like in a man, when we do our last chance weekends or private marriage intensives and walk couples through an exercise where they have to write down all of their fears, there's like this incalculable list of fears that people are trapped in, which is causing all types of anxiety and trepidation. And they're always looking around the corner for something to happen. There's just so many fears. And to live life that way is completely traumatic.
And you can work on that. Do we have to go to a break?
No.
Okay. I wanted to add to that point because, you know, circling back to the idea of being triggered, right? There are 3 forms of triggers. So you're either going to have hyperarousal, right? Where you are experiencing everything as a fear and a terror. The potential of harm is everywhere around you. You do not know where you can step foot. Just like if you were in a war and you don't know where the landmines are. It's the same when you're experiencing hyperarousal with PISD, which is post-infidelity stress disorder, right? Which is very similar to PTSD. But right. And then you might also step into have intrusive thoughts, right? So now you didn't ask for these thoughts. You were minding your business, walking down the street, and all of a sudden you see a color and it just reminds you of the color that he had on or she had on. And you have intrusive thoughts. And now it's bringing you back to the memories of what happened, whether you were there or not, because your brain is so creative. It can actually create a story. And then there's constriction. And that's when you just stop showing up. Like you are completely shut all the way down. You're going through hell. You know everything is falling apart. Your marriage is not where it's supposed to be, right? But you are somehow numb. Somehow everything's okay. Somehow you're operating like nothing ever happened, like a Stepford wife. You got the dress on, the heels, you vacuuming and cleaning, cooking and serving, having sex, like nothing ever. Therapy. And so these are the states that you could be going through when you're triggered. And that's what happens after infidelity, after the betrayal, you go through these stages because of the shock and the awe and the trauma that you've endured. Now you're going to experience these triggers.
Man, I couldn't have broke that down that good if I tried. See, that's why I'm glad when you're sitting
That's why
next to me as a co-pilot in this. Well, you know. That and some other reasons. Listen, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. You're watching the Couples Academy show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And Danielle's going to go deeper into the psychological, mental, emotional, physical challenges that happens when you are the betrayed spouse. Stay right there. All right, guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about the effects, you know, the emotional, physical, psychological effects on the mind of the person who's been betrayed. But Danielle, before we get started, because I know this is what you deal with all day long, isn't Unearthed starting tonight?
Actually, it is. Unearthed starts tonight. Ladies, there's still room. If you are someone who is struggling and battling with triggers, and I'm not talking about just triggers from your recent relationships. I'm talking about triggers from way back when you was itty bitty, okay? 7 years old. We are carrying these triggers and we bring them everywhere we go. And you know what's interesting, Asani, that I find is that somehow we think that if we leave this relationship or we leave this situation, we will escape our hurts and our pains. And the problem is that we take us everywhere we go.
Everywhere.
And until we unearth ourselves, we will not be able to see different or be different, behave different. We'll be stuck. Even when our spouses start going through a transformation process and they are changing, you can't perceive it because you're still stuck. So if you're interested, let me know. You can reach out, go to couplesacademy.org. We still have space.
That's deep. You know, you said we take us everywhere we go. I remember having a friend back in the day, and he was just like, man, every time, I'm just getting into trouble. I think I'm going to relocate. I'm going to go to California and start a new life. And
What's
I'm
that
like,
going to do?
You can't run from yourself.
There's more mess to get into over there.
I'm just saying. So I was just like, that's a great point. You got to deal with you. You
got to deal with you.
Anyway, listen, let's go to some of these comments. I want to address Anthony. Anthony says, my wife and I are still in the discovery phase, and it is definitely affecting us both mentally and emotionally. It is very hard dealing with the two realities. My first question would be, how long have you been in the discovery phase? When did the discovery of the affair take place? Was it last night? Was it a month ago? Was it a year ago? How long have you been trapped in that? Unfortunately, couples who don't go through a particular process with whomever their trained practitioner is can stay in the discovery phase indefinitely. And it's a painful thing because you're constantly living in the past. And if you live in that past moment, you're going to erect or resurrect the emotions and the pain that were felt in that past previous experience. And so this is why we're dedicated to getting people out of that. And so we transition people out of the discovery phase into full disclosure, and then so on and so on and so forth. So please don't be trapped in that. Reach out to us. Let us know how we can help you so that we can begin to turn your situation around. Then Popette says, perfect timing for this topic. It's my birthday today, and I'm struggling after being triggered by husband's pending business trip. That's a great point, and, we were going to get to that point, but we might as well get to it now. What happens is one of the pains that the betrayed spouse has, there's a preoccupation, there's an obsessiveness, if you will, on what their spouse is doing, particularly when they leave the home. Now, whether leaving the home means going away on a business trip for several days, for a week, whatever the case may be, or if leaving the home means going to work, or if leaving the home means going to the grocery store, if leaving the home means going to, mow the lawn outside.
Wherever, it doesn't matter.
Question about what
are they
doing,
going to do,
where they're at, who are they talking to, what's the agenda, and so it can become so consuming that you lose all sense of reality for every other area of your life.
And I think a lot of that, because, someone might say, that's ridiculous. I can't go to the store. What am I going to do between, the drive from my house to going to the supermarket? Well, they don't know. And the reason for that is because they were completely blindsided in the first place by the fact that you were able to accomplish so much deceit in that amount of time. Most people were blown away. They did not see it coming. They had no clue. So they're blindsided. And so, maybe 10 minutes is all you need to get on the phone, to call, to check a text, to chat back, to slide into somebody's DM. And so this is one of the reasons why we teach people to live a life of full disclosure. If you continue to live a life, if you have a lifestyle of full disclosure, you don't have to do so much to prove you're not doing anything. Your lifestyle is proving it, right? You check in every time you leave the house. You stay on the phone with your partner the entire time. You flip the camera and say, hey, look, do you like this? Like, you are intentional about exposing your life so that you create this environment where your spouse can begin to redevelop the trust that was lost.
And let me just take a moment to explain who we're talking to, because there's many of you right now who are watching who are going through counseling with Couples Academy. You are in the Moving Forward program. You are part of Foundations. You are in Unearthed. You are in Foundry, and you're getting the necessary work that needs to be done to transform your life and to restore your relationship. So you're hearing this, and you may be triggered by what you're hearing, but many of you have been past this phase already, but the reminder of it can be triggering. But we're talking to the person who hasn't done anything yet, the person who's vacillating back and forth as to what they should do, the person who's been up since 2:30 in the morning doing research and watching videos and looking for an answer because they just don't know what to do. That's who we are talking to, and we're identifying the struggle that you have so that you can make a decision for your life and for your relationship.
And I want to talk to the person that's been through the process and is healing. That this is a reminder. This is, for you, this could validate, this is not where I'm at, but that's what I came from. Yes, that's exactly what it was for me. As a reminder and to validate validate that the work that you have been doing is paying off. And that's everybody. For me, that's the message for everybody, that you don't have to stay on this hamster wheel. You don't have to stay in Groundhog Day. You don't have to stay in perpetual discovery if you do the work. There are so many people that are listening to this show that are participating in some of the programs that we offer at Couples Academy that were exactly where you are and have come such a long way to recovery. And they're still on the road to recovery because you don't get off the road to recovery. It becomes a lifestyle.
Absolutely. One of the other things that we have to deal with is the fact that there's a denial that the betrayed spouse goes through. And this is one of the ways that it impacts their mental health, because there's this shock and awe and disbelief that this could have ever happened.
Yeah.
Like, why me?
Or
like,
how did I miss this?
Right. So it's just like, I've been a good husband. I've been a good father. I work every day. I sacrifice for the family, and this is how I'm rewarded. Or I've been a good mother. I cook, I clean. I've been a perfect wife. All these different things. What did I do to deserve it? And so there's a shock. There's a disbelief. There's a denial. Like it's almost like the person who's in denial almost sticks their head in the sand and doesn't want to face their own reality, and that helps to keep them trapped in their pain, and it makes the recovery process that much longer.
I mean, amen and see a lot of that.
Difficulty accepting that their spouse did this, because now they begin to question, wait a minute. I thought I knew you. I thought I don't even know you anymore. I don't even know if I know myself.
Right there. I don't know myself. And let's translate that to, can I trust myself? Can I even trust my own judgment? How is it that I'm living with this person and doing life with this person, eating together, we were intimate, all of that, and I could not discern? Where's my discernment? Right? So now you're berating yourself, because in addition to the anger and the frustration we feel when we're betrayed, it's also, I'm a little angry at myself. Like, I should know better. Like, this happened to me. I allowed this to happen to me. I missed it. I'm the one that people come to me. I'm the one, ringing the alarm for all my friends, but somehow I missed it.
And there's a level of shame that a person walks in, because to your point, Danielle, I was the oracle for so many other people. I'm the one who stands on platforms declaring what other people should do. And now I'm hit with the reality. It's come to my doorstep, and I don't know what to do. And here's the other trap.
And I would tell people to do this, but I'm not even doing what I would tell people to do.
And now I can't go to the people that I've been telling them to do, because wait a minute, who can I go to?
It's a slippery slope.
And this is the challenge. Like, every couple who comes to us, they're the it couple in their community. They're the ones that everybody look up to.
That is so true.
And so they feel like, I don't know where to go. I don't know who to talk to. I'm not trying to put myself on blast, my spouse on blast, because of our reputation, who we are to other people. And so they are alone on an island all by themselves, looking for an answer and cannot find one. But the answer is found in Couples Academy. And that's exactly why we do what we do every single day, to give you what you need to listen. You need to become bold and courageous and audacious in your effort to turn your situation around. Stop sitting back, watching videos, reading articles, and thinking that is enough. It is not enough. It wasn't enough for us when I resisted going to counseling, because I said, well, we could read a book. I ain't trying to listen to no other man tell me how to live my life. I'm not trying to go to my pastor. Our church is too small. I don't want other people in my business. I don't want them preaching.
That right there. Not want people in your business. People are already in your business, by the way, because even when you couldn't see it, other people could see it. Other people are already a witness to the nonsense that you walking around. You can't see it, but everybody else could see it. And that's why when you do talk to people, they're like, man, you know what? I didn't want to say nothing. I kind of saw this and I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure. I have literally had first ladies say to me, don't tell me nothing about my spouse. I'm tired of y'all coming to me and telling me about my spouse. But then when it all comes out, we shocked in and all. What are we shocked about? We knew what was going on. And so what Hassani is saying is so relevant about the whole sticking your head in the sand and acting like this issue is going to just disappear and dissipate all on its own. It will never go away on its own. You have to step up to the plate and look at and face some hard things so that you can move forward.
Absolutely.
At Couples Academy.
Oof, man. And in terms of what other people see, let's talk about what's going on in the mind of the betrayed spouse.
Yeah.
So if the betrayal happened 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, when they close their eyes, it's like they're tortured. They're in a mental hell because all they can see is what happened then. Now, here's the reality. They weren't there. But what's happening is the information that they got from their spouse or the pieces that they've been forced to put together on their own because they haven't gotten insight from their spouse, they're recreating in their mind visions of what happened, right? All these flashbacks begin to happen. It's like they're replaying the movie. Like, think about your favorite song that you play again and again and again and again and again, and now you know every word. The same thing happens with these visuals,
yes.
and they haunt you and they consume you and they keep you trapped. And so now when you open up your eyes, you're looking at your present partner through a past lens of who he or she used to be, and it makes it that much harder to heal and reconcile that relationship.
Oh my goodness. You know, I want to say this, okay, because life is spiritual. And if you can really understand the magnitude of that life is spiritual and there is actually a battle going on for your soul. And you know that your soul is where your mind, your will, and your intellect live. Right? And you walking around minding your business and hear a song, right, that you don't even like. You don't even like the song, but you let it play. And then late in the midnight hour, that same song plays without your permission in your head. Has that ever happened to anybody? That is an indication that you are not fully physically in control of what happens to you. You're not physically always in control. A lot of this stuff is spiritual, and it sinks into the spirit level, and you got, or the unconscious realm, whatever, however you want to say it, whatever resonates with you, it sinks in, and you start to move based on that. So when Hassani starts talking about flashbacks, I mean, these flashbacks are sometimes not even things that you physically witnessed with your own eyes, okay? But you've seen a movie, right? Yeah. You've heard stories. You can make up the story in your own mind about what happened, even if you didn't see it. And these things begin to control you and to control how you respond. You could a flashback can take place from seeing a color, a smell, seeing anything that is resembling of something that happened in the past that caused trauma. You can experience a flashback. And now it's all about how you respond to these flashbacks. And we will talk about that on our other show. But we got to start taking control of what's happening to us spiritually, so that we can take control and rule over us, what's happening to us physically, but it starts in the spirit.
But let's talk about the response. Let's talk about the physical response that happens when these flashbacks or when this mental torture or spiritual struggle begins to take place in your life. The physical reactions may show up like this. Number one, you may struggle with nausea. People who just can't hold down their food. They're always running to the bathroom. They're vomiting. They can't hold anything down. Or they're very sick. They have fevers. They have harsh headaches. They can't function. They're lightheaded.
You hear people talk about that.
All the time. Yeah. There's an increased heart rate. There's palpitations in their heart. They can't control their breathing. Real. They begin hallucinating. They start shaking, right? There's beads of sweat coming down their face. I remember when I was in a vehicle with a friend of ours, and we were driving back late at night, and we had a head-on collision with this deer in the middle of the highway, and it totaled the car. All the airbags released. The car literally crushed. We got out without a scratch, without a broken bone, thank God. But the level of shock, and I remember looking at the car, and literally my hands were like this. Mm-hmm. Like I wasn't in physical pain, but more in a shock. Like I could feel a pain in my body, but it wasn't like a pain of a broken bone.
Right.
And that's the level of shock.
Right.
That happens when a person first discovers it and revisits it again
with
and
a flashback.
Again and again.
Exactly. Going back to the amygdala. It does that for you. So you are not even physically there. That was 2 years ago. But your mind can take you there and give you a realistic, very present response. So now your heart is busting out of your chest. Your hands are shaking. You got beads of sweat going down. All of these are physiological responses to an emotion that's happening as a triggered thought. I mean, wow, like, isn't that triune, right? Like, we're talking about the spirit, the body, the mind, right? All of these things are affecting you all at once. And we have to learn how to take control of those things so that it's not running our lives.
This is a deep conversation.
Because we're talking about these are the effects after infidelity. You are affected. You have been changed. You are not the same. You know it. Your spouse knows it. But when are you going to step out and do something about it? Because this can be the hamster wheel that you run on for the rest of your life if you don't decide to make change.
I got to go back to Anthony before we wrap up this show. He wrote a book. I'm going to read chapter 1, then chapter 2. I'm playing with you, Anthony. But he says, my apologies, not the discovery phase, but the disclosure phase. It's been over a month, mostly due to it being hard to disclose issues, or give details that hurt your spouse. Everything is out now. Then he goes on to say, it's been 1 week, and the questions are hard to even answer. Hearing the things you've done, it's hurtful to us both. And then he goes on to say, also details from previous affairs from us both and being shared. And it's honestly allowed us to feel as if we're having a fresh start to a brand new marriage. Disclosure does help. It does. Full disclosure when you've done it. And
as the lifestyle.
Everything out on the table, leaving no stone unturned. It's just like, okay. Here's the painful part. When you engage in the trickle truth, and to your point, pieces of truth come out little by little by little, and your spouse thinks they know and they don't know. And so every new detail feels like a new betrayal all over again, and the bleeding just doesn't stop. So if you've gone through full disclosure, congratulations that you've done that. Now you have to go to the next logical step. Okay, so hopefully, I'm assuming you know what that is because you're in some process. But if you don't, certainly reach out to us. This was a great conversation. Man, we're just really scratching the surface because the impact on a person's mental health is more than what we can cover in 30 minutes. So we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow, guys. We hope that you got something out of the show. Sit down and watch this with your spouse. Let it be a tool of information and let it spark some inspiration to begin to do something about it. But until then, we love you guys and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.